This is the Ridgid K-7500 pipe drain cleaning machine, and it's a pretty amazing piece of technology for what it does. And it's about just under 300 pounds with 100 feet of 5/8 solid core cable on it. And let's just talk about a couple of things with that weight in mind. First of all, when you're moving something like this around, suddenly it becomes with 300 pounds, you want to make sure you can get it upstairs and get it into vehicles and move it around. They have the standard wheel system, but they also have this roller system as well, and a series of bearings that helps you roll it upstairs and move it around. And that's nice. Also, when you get this thing in place, remember that you're setting it up within 3 feet of where you're feeding that pipe, because you can't, for the pipe that you're going to feed this into. Remember that you're building up an enormous amount of force on this, because this is 5/8 inch spring steel. And so you really got to be tight to your work, because the most terrifying thing you've ever had happen to you is have one of these things whip on you. And they've done a lot of things to make sure that happens, and they've given you a lot of safety instructions to follow in the machine. But you got to make sure you set this thing up close to it. And when you do, you want to make sure your machine's stable, because though it's 300 pounds, with the kind of force that this thing creates, this thing can be rocked around. So they put on it a set of a little blocking system here that snaps out and makes this machine safer, maybe even safe, so that it doesn't fall over on you if you have this thing bind up on you. The machine only runs just under 6 amps, if you can believe that. The reason they're able to create enough power with this system with 6 amps is that this system works just like like a winch on the front of a car, the old Warren winches. It's got a series of clutches and gears that, as it binds down and as more pressure is exerted on this drum as your cable gets tangled, it drops, and you can hear it. The noise level changes. It drops gears and then applies more pressure as there's more resistance. So it's a nice machine that way, because you can plug it into a standard socket. You don't have to go find a dedicated socket or anything like that. It's also wired on a GFI because you're working around water. That's always a nice thing. Nobody likes getting shocked. The machine itself is really easy to use. It'll do, between the way we have it wired with this cable, it'll do between 3 to 6 inch in diameter pipe. Most code now doesn't use 3 inch anymore, but you know, if you have an older pipe, that's good to keep in mind. You better be careful. I wouldn't use this on clay pipes, and if you're using plastics, be very, very careful and watch your cutter blades and what you're doing. The machine head changing has come a long way from what it used to be. This head system works the same as this attachment, which is a piece that you would add that's flexible on the front of your line. If you're using it on a smaller line, you don't want this level of stiffness in the front of your head. You want your head to be able to bend around and move where it goes. So you put this on first on a smaller pipe. But the system for attaching this on is uniform on all of these. And let me just show you how easy it is. This is simply a little nut, or screw right here, and you'll see an L mark, and you'll see a mark on the screw here. These are slid in like so, and then you simply rotate your screw to face the L, so that the slot and the L are matching, and your piece is stable and in place. If you want to know why it's that easy, I always like to know. The inside of this has a little bit of a cam, and so one side it's open, and as you rotate, the other side it's closed. So installing and changing heads on this is very easy, which is nice because you want to use this machine and use the smallest size cutter that you can to first get things going, and then work your way up to whatever size cutter or piece you can use, up to anything that's an inch smaller than the pipe that you're pushing it through. And so it encourages you to take your time, which is what you want to do with one of these machines when you're clearing out a cog, clearing out a plug. you know, first instinct is to try to go do it as fast as possible and raise hell in the process. That's not the best instinct. Take your time with this machine, do it right. Read the directions about when you hit plugs, you stop pushing the machine forward, you let the tool heads do the work for you. You'll read the directions. It's pretty easy. It's only a couple pages that kind of go over the do's and don'ts. Last couple things I want to talk about this machine people should keep in mind is this forward and reverse up here. It's got a forward, off, and reverse. You can't go from forward to reverse with this button. This reverse is only for emergencies. If your pipe snake is completely bound and you want to try to pull it out, you can turn this off, let the machine completely stop, turn it on reverse, and in those isolated circumstances is the only time this switch is used. Otherwise, it stays on, and you put one hand on your pipe and one hand on this, and this is your forward and reverse. What they call it is advanced and retrieve. And so when you're using one of these systems, you're 3 feet away from your pipe hole. You release this, which is the clamp that cinches down on this pipe that gives this the ability to go forward and reverse. Pull out enough pipe so that it goes down in your hole, and then you tighten this down until you feel it just cinch on that piece of metal. And then the directions will tell you to spin it 1 full turn. That's it. And now you've activated this advance and retrieve button. They give you a pressure activated on and off switch for your foot because one hand stays here and one hand stays here when you're using one of these machines. So let's just go ahead and show you. This is retrieve, and it's this easy. And this is forward. And this is neutral, and this is slow, and so you can kind of adjust this as to how fast you're traveling. When you hit your stoppage, you go to neutral, let it do its work, and then back off and come forward. It allows you to work your way slowly and carefully through whatever plug-in you have in your pipe system. And this unit, and with 100 feet of this, and this engine and the camming system on it, and the platform it creates, is just simply, we think, the best machine you can use for cleaning pipes between 3 and 6 inches. Don't forget to read your manual, even though we've talked about it. And there are a series of heads that this thing can use other than what we have laid out here. What we have is what people commonly use, but there are smaller auger bits, there are spring retrieval bits, and there are different size auger bits, and there are different size blades and grease punches that you can use. You just need to tell us what size pump or pipe you're using, and we can give you the suggested tools for you to use. And the directions kind of say the same thing, which is it's kind of basically user discretion. And so if you follow their guidelines, start with the smallest and work your way up to the largest, nothing bigger than 1 inch under the size of your pipe, you should be having no problems, and your drain should run again, and this machine should be finished. Do what you can to clean it off when it comes out, but you know, these are hard to clean unless you have a pressure washer, and most people just let us do that because who wants poopy hands, right? Have a good one.